The weight of the certified letter in my hand felt heavier than paper should. My brother Jake was asking me to co-sign for his dream house again, despite my clear refusal last week. As a financial advisor, I knew better than to tie my credit to someone with his history. When I called to decline, his voice turned from pleading to venomous. 3 weeks later, Mom invited me for Sunday dinner, but when I arrived, Jake sat at the head of the table, flanked by 3 suited men. My parents looked small beside them. Jake slid a power of attorney document toward me with a pen. The room fell silent as everyone waited for my signature. I never expected my own family would try to ambush me into financial ruin. Maybe I should have seen it coming. Growing up, Jake and I were close, but we approached money differently. While I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college and build my financial advising career, Jake bounced between get-rich-quick schemes and creative excuses. Money is just a tool, Elena, he would say, whenever I questioned his latest venture. You're too cautious. That's why I'll be rich while you're still counting pennies. Despite his confidence, Jake's financial history told a different story. First came the failed food truck that left him $15,000 in debt. I helped with half. Then the cryptocurrency investment that mysteriously disappeared. I covered his rent for 3 months after that one. The pattern continued through his 20s and into his 30s. Jake would chase impossible returns, crash financially, and turn to either our parents or me for bailouts. Our parents, especially Dad, always came through. Family helps family, he'd say, while writing checks he could barely afford. They dipped into their retirement savings more than once to keep Jake afloat. I tried to advise them against it, but they dismissed my concerns. You don't understand what it's like to struggle, Mom would say, though I remembered the ramen noodle dinners during my college years quite clearly. Last year, I received a promotion at Westlake Financial Partners. My new role as senior advisor meant higher pay, but also greater responsibility. My client list doubled and my workdays stretched longer. The stress was significant but manageable, mostly because I had built my life on sound financial principles. My modest house was half paid off. My retirement accounts were growing steadily, and I had an emergency fund that would cover 6 months of expenses. That stability was precisely what Jake tried to leverage when he called me about the house. Alina, you should see this place, he gushed over the phone. 4 bedrooms, a finished basement, and a backyard, big enough for the kids to play baseball. It's perfect. It sounds lovely, I replied cautiously. What's the asking price? When he told me, I nearly dropped my coffee. The house was in Lakeside Hills, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in town. There was no way Jake's salary as a part-time graphic designer could support the mortgage. That's why I need you to co-sign, he explained, as if it were the most reasonable request. Just until my new business takes off, 6 months tops. Jake co-signing isn't a 6-month commitment. It means I'm equally responsible for the full loan term. If you miss payments, it affects my credit score too. Don't you trust me? After everything I've done for you, his voice took on that familiar wounded tone. This isn't about trust. It's about financial responsibility. Have you considered something more affordable? So you're saying my family doesn't deserve a nice home, that my kids should grow up in some cramped apartment because their aunt is too selfish to help. The emotional manipulation was classic Jake, but it still stung. I suggested alternatives, a less expensive neighborhood, saving for a larger down payment, improving his credit score first. He dismissed each idea with increasing irritation. You know what? Forget it, he finally snapped. I'll figure it out myself. I always do. No thanks to you. 3 days later, Mom called. Jake says you refused to help him with the house. After all we've done for you, Alina, I'm disappointed. Mom co-signing would put my financial future at risk. You know Jake's history with money. He has a family now. People change. Sometimes I think you care more about your bank account than your own flesh and blood. The calls continued. Dad left a voicemail suggesting I had forgotten where I came from. Jake's wife, Tracy, sent a text with pictures of their children looking sad in their current apartment, with the caption, "Wishing for a backyard." I held firm but felt increasingly isolated. Then came the dinner invitation. Mom sounded unusually insistent. We need to talk as a family. Sunday at 5. I'm making your favorite pot roast. The moment I walked through my parents' front door that Sunday, I sensed something was wrong. The dining room table was set formally with the good china they reserved for holidays. Jake sat at the head of the table where Dad usually Saturday. Next to him were 3 men in suits looking solemnly official with briefcases open before them. My parents sat together on one side, Mom's eyes red-rimmed Dad, staring at his empty plate. Alina. Jake stood his tone businesslike. Thanks for coming. We have some family matters to discuss. The oldest of the suited men slid a thick document toward me. This is a limited power of attorney, he explained in a practiced voice. It would authorize Jacob to make certain financial decisions on your behalf. I hadn't even taken off my coat. What is this about? It's about family, Jake said. About doing what's right. As I reached for the document, something fell from between its pages. It was a loan application with my signature on it, except I hadn't signed it. The forgery was close, but not perfect. What have you done? I whispered, looking up at my brother. Jake leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. I needed to get the ball rolling. The sellers were entertaining other offers. If you don't legitimize this now, I could face fraud charges. Is that what you want for your brother? The room seemed to spin around me. My brother had forged my signature and was now trying to blackmail me into complying. This wasn't just financial irresponsibility anymore. This was criminal. The dining room felt like a courtroom. Where Mom's floral centerpiece usually sat, stacks of legal documents now dominated the table. Family photos still lined the walls, smiling faces from happier times watching this nightmare unfold. Jake made formal introductions suddenly, the consummate professional. This is Mr. Harrington, our family attorney. He gestured to the oldest man, silver-haired and grave-faced. Miss Peterson specializes in real estate law. The woman in the charcoal suit nodded coolly. And Mr. Dawson is a notary who will witness the signatures. Mr. Dawson was younger than the others, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. He avoided eye contact. Jake, I need to speak with Mom and Dad alone, I said, still standing. Anything you want to say can be said here, Jake replied. We're all family. I studied my parents. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she folded and refolded her napkin. Dad, usually boisterous and opinionated, sat in uncharacteristic silence, looking somehow smaller than I remembered. Mom! Dad! What's going on? Dad cleared his throat, but Jake answered before he could speak. They understand what needs to be done. They've already signed their portions. Miss Peterson opened a leather portfolio. The arrangement is straightforward. This limited power of attorney grants Jacob access to manage specified assets temporarily. It's quite standard in family financial planning. Nothing about this felt standard. My brother had transformed from the perpetually casual, chronically late Jake into someone coldly strategic. His usual rumpled appearance was replaced by a crisp button-down shirt and gelled hair. He maintained eye contact too long, like someone who had read about confidence techniques but hadn't mastered them. I work in financial planning, I said, directing my words to the professionals. There's nothing standard about ambushing a family member with legal documents. No one is being ambushed. Jake countered smoothly. We're having a family meeting about shared responsibilities. You've always prided yourself on being responsible, haven't you, Alina? The subtle threat in his tone wasn't lost on me. I tried again to connect with my parents. Dad, can we talk in the kitchen for a minute? Jake stood. Dad's not feeling well today. All this stress about the family finances. That's why we need to resolve this now. I moved toward my parents anyway, but Jake blocked my path. The sooner we finish, the sooner we can all enjoy Mom's pot roast. From the documents spread across the table, I spotted a bank statement from my parents' retirement account. The balance was shockingly low. Next to it lay transfer authorizations with both their signatures. You've accessed their retirement funds. My question came out as a horrified whisper. Jake's expression hardened. They chose to invest in their son's future, unlike some people in this family. Miss Peterson interjected. Perhaps Miss Montgomery needs time to review the documents. There's no time, Jake insisted. The closing is scheduled for next week. What closing? I asked. The house, Jake replied, as if I were being deliberately obtuse. The house you refused to help with. Mom and Dad stepped up, but we need your portion to complete the financing. I glanced at my mother. Mom, is this what you want? Before she could answer, Jake cut in. They want what's best for the family. They want their grandchildren to have a stable home. They want their son to succeed. Why is that so hard for you to understand? Mr. Harrington shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we should give the family a moment. No, Jake said sharply. Then, composing himself, we've already delayed too long. Elena, we just need your signature and everyone can move forward. You have plenty of assets. This is a drop in the bucket for you. I remained standing, trying to assess the situation through the fog of shock. The power of attorney would give Jake access to my investment accounts, the emergency fund I'd spent years building, possibly even my home equity. The document was worded to sound temporary, but contained clauses that would be difficult to reverse. As I scanned the papers, I noticed Mr. Dawson's notary credentials displayed on the table. Something about them caught my eye. The issue date was recent, and the formatting seemed off compared to official documents I'd seen in my work. Mr. Dawson, I addressed him directly. How long have you been a notary? He startled slightly. 3 years. And which office issued your commission? The state office, of course, he replied, glancing at Jake. Which state office specifically? I pressed. The main one, he answered vaguely. Jake interrupted. This isn't relevant. We're wasting time. But I'd caught something important. A real notary would know exactly which government division had issued their commission. I studied Mr. Dawson more carefully. There was something familiar about him. Haven't we met before? I asked. At Jake's 4th of July barbecue last year. Mr. Dawson's face flushed red. I don't think so. You were wearing a Westlake Community College sweatshirt. You and Jake were in the same fraternity. The room fell silent. Jake's jaw tightened. Are you actually a licensed notary, Mr. Dawson? I asked directly. Of course he is, Jake snapped. Stop stalling. But Mr. Dawson's discomfort was obvious now. Miss Peterson and Mr. Harrington exchanged concerned glances. Impersonating a notary public is a felony in this state, I said quietly. Punishable by up to 3 years in prison. Mr. Dawson abruptly stood, gathering his things. I just remembered another appointment. I need to reschedule this. Sit down, Scott, Jake hissed, dropping all pretense. We had an agreement. You said this was all legitimate, Scott Dawson replied. You didn't say anything about impersonating officials. Miss Peterson closed her portfolio. Mr. Montgomery, if there's misrepresentation occurring here, I cannot be part of it. The carefully orchestrated ambush was beginning to unravel. Jake's expression flashed from confidence to panic to anger in seconds. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. Scott, you can go. We don't need you for this part anyway. As Scott Dawson hurried out, I turned my attention back to my parents. Now can we please talk alone? After the fake notary's hasty departure, Mr. Harrington and Miss Peterson excused themselves to the front porch, clearly reconsidering their involvement. Jake reluctantly agreed to give me 15 minutes alone with our parents stomping out to join the attorneys outside. The moment the door closed, I rushed to my parents. What's really going on? Why are you doing this? My mother's composure crumbled. Tears spilled down her cheeks as Dad put his arm around her shoulders. Jake is in trouble, Alina, she whispered. Serious trouble. What kind of trouble? Dad looked older than his 64 years as he spoke. Gambling debts. Not just casinos. Sports betting poker games with dangerous people. He says they've threatened him. How much does he owe? They exchanged glances. He won't tell us exactly, Mom said. But it's a lot. More than we can cover. Is that where your retirement money went? Dad nodded miserably. We gave him what we could. He said it would solve everything, but then there was more. And the house. Why is he so fixated on buying this specific house? Mom twisted her wedding ring nervously. He says it's an investment opportunity, that the area is up and coming and he could flip it for enough profit to clear his debts. That's not how real estate works, especially in this market, I said gently. Even in the best circumstances, it's not a quick turnaround. Dad cleared his throat. There's something else. I co-signed on a business loan for him last year. The one for his graphic design studio. It went into default 3 months ago. Why didn't you tell me? He swore he would fix it. Said he had clients lined up. Dad's voice cracked. Now my credit is ruined. The house we're trying to help him buy. We thought it could be an investment for all of us. A family asset. I felt sick as the pieces fell into place. He's manipulated you. This isn't about a family home. He needs a large asset to leverage for cash. Mom looked down at her hands. He said you were hoarding family money, that you had more than enough to help but were too selfish. What family money? Everything I have I earned by working 60-hour weeks for years. He showed us your investment statements, Dad admitted. Said you were hiding your true net worth from us. A chill ran through me. How did he get my statements? From your birthday dinner last summer, Mom explained. You stepped out to take a client call. Your laptop was open on the kitchen counter. And he just happened to look at my financial accounts while I was gone. He said he was just checking his email, Dad said weakly. The violation felt profound. My brother had not only snooped through my private financial information, but had used it to manipulate our parents against me. There's more, Mom said, her voice barely audible. Jake said if we didn't help him, he would cut us off from seeing the grandkids. The cruelty of using his own children as leverage against our parents made me furious. Has he done that before? Used the kids as threats? Their silence was answer enough. What about the papers you've already signed? What did they say? Dad rubbed his forehead. Some kind of mutual family investment agreement. Jake said it was just formalizing that we're all in this together. Did your attorney review these documents? What attorney? Mom looked confused. Jake said Mr. Harrington was handling everything. Mr. Harrington is not your attorney, Mom. He's Jake's. You need someone representing your interests. I moved to the table and began reviewing the documents they'd signed. What I found horrified me. They had signed multiple authorizations, power of attorney forms, giving Jake control over their accounts, quitclaim deeds to their house, even authorization to take loans against Dad's life insurance policy. Did you know what you were signing? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. They looked at each other helplessly. Jake said they were standard forms, Dad explained. That everyone signs them for family financial planning. My mother dabbed at her eyes. We just wanted to help. He said if we did this one last thing, he would be set for life and never need money again. I had heard those words from Jake many times over the years. So had they. Yet the desperation to believe in him, remained strong. As I continued examining the documents, I noticed something strange about the investment statements Jake had shown them. They were indeed my statements, but they had been altered. Numbers were changed, assets inflated. One statement showed an account with nearly 10 times its actual value. These statements are fake, I told them, pointing out discrepancies. Jake doctored them to make it look like I'm sitting on a fortune. As we talked, I began connecting more dots. Each time Jake had approached me for loans in recent years, it had been shortly after I received a bonus or made a significant investment. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Has Jake ever used your computer to check his email or social media? I asked. Dad nodded. He doesn't have a good computer at home. Says he's waiting for a big client payment to upgrade. On a hunch, I picked up my phone and opened my banking app. Instead of requiring fingerprint authentication, it opened directly to my accounts. Someone had disabled the security features. He's been monitoring my finances, I realized aloud. Probably installed keyloggers on your computer to capture my passwords when I visited. That's how he knew when I had money available. My parents looked stunned as the extent of Jake's deception became clear. Mom began to sob quietly. It's not your fault, I assured them. Jake is. He needs help. Professional help. This goes beyond normal financial irresponsibility. Just then, the back door opened. Jake entered, his face thunderous. Time's up. What lies have you been telling them? Jake surveyed the scene with mounting anger. The documents I had spread across the table, our parents' tear-streaked faces, my protective stance between them and him. What have you done? He demanded. I leave for 20 minutes and you've turned them against me. No one's against you, Jake, I said carefully. But these documents would ruin Mom and Dad financially. You know that, right? Don't be so dramatic. It's a family investment. His tone shifted to the wounded innocence he had perfected since childhood. Mom, Dad, you understand what we're trying to accomplish here, don't you, for the family? My father, who had always backed down in the face of Jake's manipulation, surprised me by straightening his shoulders. Son, we need to talk about these gambling debts. Jake froze. His eyes darted to me accusingly. What have you been saying? The truth, I replied. Something this family needs more of. He laughed bitterly. The truth. You want to talk about truth? How about how you've always been the perfect child while I'm the screw-up? How about how you've been holding back all these years living like a miser while your own brother struggles? I've helped you more times than I can count, Jake. We all have. Spare change. You make 6 figures and live like you're still in college. Your investment accounts are bursting, while I can barely make rent. The door opened again, and Miss Peterson stepped partially inside. Everything all right in here? We heard raised voices. Fine, Jake snapped. Family disagreement. Give us a few more minutes. She hesitated, looking at our parents with concern. Perhaps we should reschedule this meeting. No, Jake insisted. We're closing on this house next week. We just need to finalize the paperwork today. Miss Peterson glanced at me. Miss Montgomery, are you comfortable proceeding? Before I could answer, Jake cut in. She's fine. We're all fine. Just a minor misunderstanding. When Miss Peterson reluctantly withdrew, Jake turned back to me, his voice low and dangerous. Do you have any idea what you're doing? The people I owe money to aren't the patient type. Then maybe you shouldn't have borrowed from them, I replied evenly. You think I had a choice? The banks wouldn't touch me after that business loan went south. The one Dad co-signed. The one that's ruined his credit. Jake waved dismissively. Temporary setback. Once this house deal goes through, everyone gets paid. How? The mortgage would be enormous. You can't afford the payments on your income. I don't plan to make payments for long, he said, lowering his voice further. The house is just collateral for a bridge loan. Then I flip it. In this market, that's fantasy, Jake. Houses in that neighborhood sit for months, sometimes years. I have a buyer lined up already. Foreign investor. All cash deal. The pieces suddenly clicked. You've already committed to this, haven't you? That's why you forged my signature on the preliminary documents. You've promised money you don't have to people you shouldn't be dealing with. His silence confirmed my suspicion. Jake, listen to me. This isn't the way out. It's just digging a deeper hole. Easy for you to say from your ivory tower of financial security, he snarled. Some of us don't have the luxury of perfect credit scores and emergency funds. Those weren't luxuries. They were choices. Choices I made every day, even when they were hard. Well, here's a hard choice for you now. Jake's voice turned cold. Sign these papers, or I drain what's left of Mom and Dad's accounts tonight. Their house goes on the market tomorrow. Dad stood up shakily. You wouldn't do that. Try me. Jake's face was a mask of desperate determination. I'm out of options. There are always options that don't involve destroying your family, I insisted. My family, Jake laughed harshly. You mean the sister who lectures instead of helps? The parents who compare me to you at every turn? That family. We've never compared you, Mom protested weakly. Every birthday card, Mom. Be more like your sister. Learn to save like Elena. Every Christmas. Maybe Elena can show you how to budget. My whole life living in the shadow of Saint Elena. The raw resentment in his voice startled me. Had he really interpreted every well-meaning suggestion as a comparison? Had I contributed to this dynamic without realizing it? Jake, I said softly, this isn't about me versus you. It never was. Save it. He moved to block the doorway. No one leaves until we finish this. I'm done asking nicely. The implied threat hung in the air. Jake had never been physically intimidating, but desperation changed people. His body language was coiled tight, ready to spring. The lawyers outside might have something to say about that, I pointed out. They work for me, he retorted. And they've been paid well to see this through. I studied my brother's face, searching for any trace of the person I grew up with. All I saw was fear and rage. There's something you should know, I said carefully. I found the property listing for the house you're trying to buy. It shows is already sold, 3 weeks ago. Jake's expression faltered. That's impossible. The closing is next week. The seller is listed as Montgomery Holdings, LLC. That's you, isn't it? You already bought it. His silence confirmed it. How I pressed. Where did you get the money? Bridge loan, he muttered. High interest, 30-day balloon payment. The bank financing was supposed to pay it off, which required my income and credit to qualify. I finished for him. So you're not buying a house. You're refinancing a predatory loan on a house you already purchased through a shell company. Does Tracy even know about any of this? Mom gasped. Jake, what have you done? What I had to do, he shouted. What no one would help me do, and now I have 23 days to come up with $400,000 or they take everything. The desperate admission echoed in the suddenly silent room. Even Jake seemed shocked by his own outburst. Dad sank back into his chair. 400,000, son, that's more than our house is worth. I know, Jake whispered, the fight draining from him. I know. In that moment, I saw my brother clearly. Not as the manipulator he'd become, but as someone drowning, taking desperate, destructive gasps that only pulled him deeper. Let me use the bathroom, I said, needing a moment to think. Then we'll figure this out. Jake nodded dully, stepping aside. As I passed him, I caught a whiff of alcohol on his breath, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. The small bathroom off my parents' kitchen had never felt so much like a sanctuary. I locked the door and leaned against it, drawing deep breaths to clear my head. The magnitude of Jake's deception was staggering, but beneath my anger and hurt lay a stubborn core of love for my brother and parents. They needed help, even if they didn't know how to ask for it properly. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Lauren Reed, a colleague who specialized in elder financial abuse cases. Emergency. Parents being financially manipulated by brother. Need advice on immediate protections. Can you talk? While waiting for her response, I photographed every document I could before coming to the bathroom. I emailed them to both Lauren and myself with the subject line, Urgent Evidence. My phone vibrated with Lauren's incoming call. I turned on the sync to mask our conversation. Elena, are you safe? Lauren's voice was concerned but professional. Physically, yes. But my brother has my parents trapped in a dangerous financial scheme. He's desperate and becoming unpredictable. I quickly outlined the situation, the forged documents, the predatory loan, the fake notary, the power of attorney forms, and the threats. This is textbook elder financial abuse, Lauren confirmed, and identity theft with the forgery. We need to act quickly. Are real attorneys present? 2. They seem uncomfortable with the situation, but haven't walked out yet. Good. They have ethical obligations we can leverage. Here's what you do. Lauren outlined a strategy that would buy time while protecting my parents' remaining assets. By the time we ended the call, I had a clear plan. I splashed water on my face, squared my shoulders, and returned to the dining room. Jake was pacing nervously while our parents sat in defeated silence. The 2 attorneys had returned and were speaking in hushed tones by the window. I've thought about it, I announced to the room, and I'm willing to help under certain conditions. Jake stopped pacing suspicion, warring with hope on his face. What conditions? First, we need 48 hours to properly review all documents. No exceptions. I told you there's no time, Jake objected. Second, I continued, as if he hadn't spoken, Mom and Dad need their own independent legal representation. That's unnecessary, Mr. Harrington interjected. I'm representing the family's interests collectively. With all due respect, Mr. Harrington, that's an inherent conflict of interest. You know that. The older attorney had the decency to look uncomfortable. Third, I went on. All existing signatures are nullified until new properly witnessed documents are drawn up. No forgeries, no fake notaries, no hidden clauses. Jake's face darkened. This is just a delay tactic. Fourth, I'll provide an immediate good faith payment of $5,000 to demonstrate my commitment to helping resolve the situation. This caught Jake's attention. $5,000 today. Direct transfer to your account. It won't solve everything, but it might buy you some time with your creditors. The calculation was visible on Jake's face. $5,000 was a fraction of what he needed, but it was cash in hand today. Finally, I said, we meet again on Tuesday evening with all parties properly represented. We'll find a solution that protects everyone. And if I refuse, Jake challenged. Then I walk out now and file a police report about the forged documents before I reach my car. The 2 attorneys exchanged alarmed glances. Miss Peterson, I addressed the real estate attorney directly. Are you comfortable continuing to represent Jake, knowing that forgery has occurred? She adjusted her glasses nervously. I was not aware of any document irregularities when I agreed to this meeting. And, now that you are aware, I would strongly advise my client to consider your proposal, she replied carefully. 48 hours seems reasonable to ensure everything proceeds legally. Jake was cornered, and he knew it. The presence of legitimate attorneys had become a liability for him rather than an asset. Fine, he muttered. 48 hours. But the money transfers today. It will, as soon as everyone leaves and gives my parents some peace. Jake gathered the scattered documents with jerky movements. The attorneys made their apologies and quickly departed, clearly relieved to extract themselves from the situation. Before leaving, Miss Peterson handed me her business card with her cell number written on the back. Call if you need anything, she said quietly. Jake lingered by the door, his expression unreadable. Tuesday at 7. Don't be late. One more thing, I said as he was leaving. I need contact information for everyone involved in this situation. The lender, the real estate agent, Tracy. Leave Tracy out of this, Jake snapped. Is she aware of what's happening, of the gambling, the loans? His silence was answer enough. She needs to know, Jake. This affects her future too. I'll fix it before she ever has to find out, he insisted. Like you've fixed everything else, I shook my head. Either you tell her or I will. After he finally left, I transferred the $5,000 as promised. It would buy us critical time while potentially demonstrating to Jake that I was genuinely willing to help, just not in the way he demanded. My parents sat shell-shocked at the dining room table. What happens now? Dad asked weakly. Now we protect you, I said, sitting between them. And we try to save Jake from himself. As I was explaining the next steps, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your brother owes Frank Donnelly $150 kelvins. Donnelly put a lien on your parents' house last week. Jake doesn't even know. Be careful. I stared at the cryptic warning. A new wave of dread washing over me. The situation was even worse than I thought. The 48 hours following the confrontation were a blur of activity. Lauren Reed connected me with Harrison Tucker, an elder care attorney who specialized in financial abuse cases. We met Monday morning to implement immediate protections for my parents' remaining assets. The first priority is securing what they still have, Harrison explained in his downtown office. We'll file for temporary financial guardianship and freeze their major accounts. My father, once reluctant to admit the severity of the situation, now sat determined beside my mother. Will this stop Jake from accessing our accounts completely? Yes, Harrison confirmed. It's a temporary measure while we sort everything out, but it will prevent any new transfers or loans. While Harrison prepared the legal documents, I worked with Lauren to document the full extent of Jake's financial entanglements. What we uncovered was staggering. Credit reports revealed 7 new credit cards opened in my parents' names over the past year. Most were maxed out. 2 personal loans totaling $50,000. A home equity line of credit with $30,000 already withdrawn. Classic signs of financial exploitation, Lauren noted grimly. The good news is we can dispute the fraudulent accounts. The bad news is it's going to take time. Through a contact at the county records office, Lauren confirmed the anonymous text warning. A lien had indeed been filed against my parents' house by Franklin Donnelly Investments, LLC, just 9 days earlier. Who is this Donnelly person, I asked. Nothing good, Lauren replied. His company operates in the gray areas of private lending. High-interest loans to desperate people. Aggressive collection tactics. The kind of business that stays just on the legal side of loan sharking. I also hired a forensic computer specialist to check my parents' laptop. The results confirmed my suspicions. Multiple keyloggers and remote access programs had been installed over the past 18 months, giving Jake unfettered access to their email banking and any accounts I might have accessed while visiting. He could see everything you typed, every site you visited, the specialist explained. From the timestamps, these programs were accessed most frequently right after your visits to your parents' home. The systematic violation left me feeling nauseated. The brother I thought I knew had been meticulously monitoring and manipulating our family for years. Most disturbing was what we found when we began tracing property records. The family vacation cabin in Pine Lake, left to all of us by our grandparents, had been sold 8 months ago. That's impossible, Mom said when I broke the news. We were just there for 4th of July. The deed transfer is dated February 12th. I showed her the county records. Sold to Lakefront Properties LLC for $120,000. Dad shook his head in disbelief. But we still have the keys. Jake organized the last visit. He handled all the maintenance. A call to the Pine Lake Township office confirmed our fears. The property had indeed been sold, but the new owners were allowing the previous family to use it occasionally, while renovation plans were finalized. The man who sold it still comes by sometimes, the township clerk told me. Tall fellow, very charming. Said his elderly parents were attached to the place and needed time to say goodbye. By Monday evening, we had assembled a complete picture of Jake's financial house of cards, the gambling debts, the predatory loans, the shell companies, the identity theft, the property fraud, each revelation more shocking than the last. But it was a discovery in my parents' attic that truly broke my heart. Hidden in an old suitcase were medical records for Jake from a rehabilitation center dated 3 years earlier. Diagnosis: alcohol use disorder, stimulant use disorder, gambling addiction. He told us he was at a business conference in Phoenix, Mom whispered, holding the discharge papers. We had no idea. On Tuesday morning, I contacted Tracy, Jake's wife. We met at a coffee shop while her children were at school. I knew something was wrong, she admitted. Eyes red from crying. The mood swings, the secretive phone calls coming home at 3 in the morning. But gambling loans from criminals, I had no idea it had gone this far. Tracy revealed that Jake had convinced her they were renting the lake cabin from my parents, collecting $400 from her each month, supposedly to pay them. He said they needed the rental income for their retirement, she explained. I've been writing checks to Montgomery Family Trust for over a year. By Tuesday afternoon, we had assembled our team for the evening's meeting. Harrison Tucker would represent my parents legally. Lauren would document everything and provide financial expertise. A family addiction counselor named Michael Benson would address Jake's underlying issues. Tracy had agreed to attend with her own sister for support. Jake arrived exactly at 7, still expecting to railroad us into his scheme. The shock on his face when he saw the assembled group in my parents' living room was almost pitiful. "What is this, Tracy? What are you doing here?" His eyes darted around the room, recognizing the professional threat this gathering represented. "Please sit down," Jake Harrison said calmly. "We're here to discuss some serious matters affecting the entire Montgomery family." "I don't know who you are, but this is between me and my family," Jake said, backing toward the door. "That's just it, Jake," I interjected. "We are your family, and we're trying to save you from destroying yourself and everyone who loves you." "Save the dramatics," he snapped. "Where are the papers we discussed? Where's the additional money you promised?" "There is no more money," Dad said firmly. "Not until you get help." "Help? I need cash, not help." Michael Benson spoke up. "Your family has discovered your discharge papers from Lakeside Recovery Center. They know about your addictions, Jake. The gambling, the drinking. It's time to stop hiding." Jake's face went pale. "You went through my private things. You had no right." "Like you went through mine," I countered. "Installing spyware on Mom and Dad's computer, monitoring my bank accounts, forging documents in my name." Tracy stood up, her voice shaking. "And what about the cabin, Jake? The one you sold without telling anyone? The one you've been collecting fake rent from me for?" Jake froze. The mounting evidence had him cornered, but like a trapped animal, he lashed out. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under. The debts. These people will kill me if I don't pay." "We know about Frank Donnelly," Harrison said calmly. "We know about the lien on your parents' house. We know about Montgomery Holdings LLC and the bridge loan. We know everything, Jake." "Then you know I need this deal to go through, or we're all ruined," Jake shouted. "We're already ruined," Tracy said quietly. "Our savings are gone. My parents loaned to us for the children's education fund. Did that even go to an education fund, Jake?" He couldn't meet her eyes. "We've prepared a comprehensive recovery plan." Harrison continued, sliding a folder across the coffee table. "It includes addiction treatment, financial restructuring, and legal remedies for the fraudulent activities." "I'm not going back to rehab," Jake declared. "I don't have time for that." Make time, Dad said with unexpected steel in his voice. Because your other option is jail. Jake laughed bitterly. You wouldn't report your own son. We won't have to, I explained. The forensic financial audit we've initiated will trigger automatic reporting requirements. The only question is whether you'll face those consequences, with or without family support. For the first time, Jake seemed to grasp the gravity of his situation. He sank into a chair, the facade of control crumbling. It wasn't supposed to be like this, he whispered. I just needed one big win to fix everything. That's the addiction talking, Michael said gently. There's never just one big win. There's never enough. The intervention continued for hours. Painful truths were spoken. Tears were shed. Accusations gave way to admissions. Anger yielded slowly to exhaustion and eventually to the first fragile tendrils of acceptance. Near midnight, Jake finally broke down completely. I need help. He admitted the words, seeming to cause him physical pain. I can't do this anymore. It wasn't full recovery. It wasn't even full acceptance yet. But it was a beginning. The road ahead would be long and difficult. There would be legal consequences. Jake couldn't escape financial damage that would take years to repair, and broken trust that might never fully heal. But for the first time in years, we were facing reality together as a family. As Tracy prepared to take Jake home, he turned to me at the door. The cabin, he said hoarsely. I'm sorry about Grandma and Grandpa's cabin. It was supposed to stay in the family forever. We'll figure it out, I told him. Not ready to forgive, but willing to acknowledge his remorse. One day at a time. 6 months after the intervention, we gathered in my parents' backyard for a modest Sunday barbecue. The late spring air carried the scent of Dad's famous grilled chicken and Mom's flower garden. It wasn't a celebration exactly, more a quiet acknowledgement of survival and small steps forward. The road to recovery had been neither straight nor easy. Jake spent 30 days in residential treatment for his gambling and alcohol addictions, followed by intensive outpatient therapy 3 times weekly. The changes in him were subtle but significant. Clearer eyes, more present in conversations, fewer mood swings. 183 days sober, he told me quietly, as we set up the patio table. Not boasting, just stating a fact he counted carefully each morning. The legal consequences had been substantial, but not as devastating as they might have been. Harrison had negotiated settlements for most of the fraudulent credit accounts opened in my parents' names. The identity theft charges were suspended on the condition that Jake make restitution and continue treatment. The forgery allegations related to my signature were the most serious, but I had ultimately declined to press charges, opting instead for a legally binding financial responsibility agreement. Frank Donnelly's predatory loan had been the most challenging to resolve. The lien against my parents' house was eventually invalidated due to improper filing procedures, but the debt remained. Through Lauren's connections, we negotiated a structured settlement at a drastically reduced interest rate, with payments Jake would be making for many years to come. The house that had nearly destroyed our family was sold at a loss, but the proceeds covered enough of the bridge loan to satisfy the most pressing debts. Jake and Tracy had downsized to a small apartment near her parents, living on a strict budget that I helped them create. Tracy had separated from Jake during his treatment, but agreed to attempt reconciliation conditional on his continued sobriety and financial transparency. She now managed all household finances and required Jake to maintain active participation in Gamblers Anonymous and financial counseling. My parents had aged visibly through the ordeal, but as their finances stabilized under the temporary guardianship arrangement, some of their vitality returned. Dad had taken a part-time job at the local hardware store, not because they desperately needed the income, but because it gave him purpose and social connection after retirement. I should have done this years ago, he told me. Sitting around watching the news all day wasn't good for me. Mom had started attending a support group for families affected by addiction. The experience had given her a vocabulary for boundaries she had never established before. I enabled him, she had admitted to me one afternoon. I thought I was being a good mother, but I was helping him hurt himself. The most unexpected victory had come through a legal technicality. The sale of our grandparents' cabin, it turned out, had required the signatures of all inheritors according to the original will. Since Jake had forged those signatures rather than obtaining them legitimately, we were able to challenge the sale. After months of legal wrangling, The property was returned to family ownership, though we had to refund the purchase price plus damages to the buyer. To raise the necessary funds, we had all contributed. My parents used a portion of their remaining retirement savings. I liquidated some investments. Even Jake contributed by selling his car and taking the bus to his new job at a printing company. The shared sacrifice to reclaim our family legacy had become a tangible symbol of our commitment to healing together. As we sat down to eat, I studied the faces around the table. Mom and Dad, their expressions more guarded than before, but still capable of genuine smiles. Tracy vigilant, but willing to try again. Her two children innocently enjoying their grandparents' attention, unaware of how close we had come to permanent fracture. And Jake. My brother sat quietly helping his daughter cut her chicken into manageable pieces. The arrogance and manipulation that had dominated his personality for so long had been replaced by something humbler. Not defeat exactly, but a weary acceptance of his limitations, and a cautious hope that redemption might still be possible. I met with the career counselor yesterday, he mentioned, when Dad asked about his week. She thinks with my design background I could take some additional certification courses. Maybe work toward an art director position eventually. There was no grandiose promise of instant success, no scheme to get rich quickly, just modest, realistic goals, and the patience to work toward them steadily. Later, as we cleaned up together, Jake paused beside me at the sink. I never properly thanked you, he said, eyes fixed on the dish he was drying. For what? For not giving up on me when you had every reason to. He set the dish down carefully. You could have walked away. Could have pressed charges. Nobody would have blamed you. You're my brother, I said simply. That hasn't always been easy, but it's always been true. I'm seeing things clearer now. Without the gambling, without the drinking. I look back at what I did to you, to Mom and Dad, to Tracy. I barely recognize that person. That's good, Jake. But that person was still you. You need to remember that. He nodded soberly. My sponsor says the same thing. That I can't separate myself from my actions or I'll repeat them. Smart sponsor. I don't expect you to trust me again, he continued. Maybe ever. I wouldn't in your position. But I want you to know I'm working on becoming someone who could be trusted again. The careful humility in his voice was so different from the entitled demands of 6 months ago. It wasn't a miraculous transformation. Jake would always struggle with impulse control. He would always be vulnerable to the siren call of quick fixes and easy money. Recovery wasn't a destination, but a daily choice he would need to make for the rest of his life. But standing beside him in our parents' kitchen, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel again: hope. Not blind optimism, but a cautious faith that even the deepest wounds could heal with time, boundaries, and consistent effort. As the sun began to set, we gathered on the back porch. Mom brought out her grandmother's quilt to ward off the evening chill. Dad told one of his corny jokes that still made us groan and laugh despite having heard it dozens of times before. Tracy's daughter showed us a dance routine she had learned in her kindergarten class. It wasn't perfect. The trust between us all remained fragile, held together by new agreements and careful vigilance. The financial damage would take years to repair completely. There would be difficult days ahead, potential relapses to navigate, boundaries to maintain. But in that moment, watching the fireflies begin to flicker in the gathering dusk, I understood something important about family bonds. They weren't unbreakable by nature. They required tending reinforcement, occasional pruning, and sometimes complete reconstruction. The work was hard but necessary, because these connections, however imperfect, gave our lives meaning and context. "What are you thinking about?" Mom asked, noticing my contemplative expression. "That some things worth having are worth fighting for," I replied, "even when the fight is hard." She squeezed my hand, understanding in her eyes, especially then. Have you ever had to draw a difficult boundary with someone you love? What did it cost you and what did it save? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest decisions we make are the ones that ultimately protect both ourselves and the people we care about, even when they can't see it at the time. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to hear more authentic family stories. Your likes and shares help these stories reach others who might be facing similar struggles and need to know they're not alone. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength and clarity in navigating your own family relationships, whatever challenges they may bring.